Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today for worship, and it's awesome that you were here to be a part of worship and this child dedication that we all got to witness. I mean, it's such an awesome time whenever we can see families and see parents dedicating themselves and their homes to living in a godly way, raising their children up in a godly fashion. And it's awesome that we as a church body and as a community can join them with that, support them with that, and be a part of those children's futures. And a big part of raising kids, as Miss Brittany had mentioned, some of the difficulties that we have and some of the challenges is when we have to bring correction to our kids. Now, bringing correction is a difficult part of life, no matter where we're trying to do that at, whether it be in the home, the workplace, or just in our daily activities. But we're going to tackle that topic today as we continue our Wise Words series. And this series, the whole focus of it is the fact that words matter. In every situation, in every part of life, we use words all the time, and our words impact people. Our words carry weight. Our words are significant. So it matters how we use them. It matters what words we choose, and it matters that we use them wisely. So today, as I alluded to before, our focus is on correction. And correction is good. I mean, just like with raising kids, correction is a good thing. That's how we learn right from wrong. It's how we grow. So correction is a necessity for life, but unfortunately, so often when we correct people, we feel tension. We have trouble bringing forth that correction. It's not received well. And so we get bothered by it. We get bothered by even the mildest of disagreements. And even more than that, sometimes when we observe things that we think need to be corrected in people, we think we have to point out everything that's wrong. We think in that moment they need to know it. They need to know that they're wrong, they need to be corrected, and they probably need to be punished for it. And the more we dwell on that, on those observations that we have, we get impatient, we get annoyed, the anger inside of us builds. Before too long it blows. And we make a mess out of whatever we're attempting to do, whatever good that we're trying to bring forward in this correction. It doesn't go well. And this reactive nature is something that we have to battle. It's something that permeates all parts of our lives. I mean, I think that we could all agree that we've all been triggered at some point by witnessing something, witnessing an action, a behavior that we didn't agree with, that we believe needed to be corrected. And we reacted in a negative way, probably with less than desirable results. And as I was thinking about this week, I encountered a very situation that I've been in before, but this time I got to observe it. As I was driving up to a four-way stop, two cars got to the stop at to my point of view, the exact same time. I think they thought they got there, each one thought they got there first, so they both took off at the exact same time, and they both came to a screeching halt at the exact same time. And what I watched was probably what you've witnessed, maybe what you've done. I know I've done it before. Anger. They were upset at the other one because the other person was wrong, and they needed to know it. So there was lots of yelling, lots of hand gestures, lots of things that wasn't getting communicated very well to the other person. Lots of need of correction, but not going well. And that's the way I felt before whenever I attempt to bring correction, but I let my emotions get the better of me. At best, I feel like I've aired grievances. At worst, I've made a complete fool of myself and helped no one. And that's why it's so important for us to look at how we can bring wisdom to correction. So our scope for today and our question that we're seeking to answer is, can wise words give us a better approach to bring correction to people that actually promotes positive results? And I think that as we get into that, one of the very first things we have to address is, what are we trying to achieve? What's our goal here? We have to define what our goal is when we move into these situations. And unfortunately, our goal is often to win. And I have to say, if your goal is just to win an argument, you've both already lost. We often think that we can correct people and bring about change in people just by beating them, just by out-arguing them, by out-debating them, by proving them wrong in public opinion. And that doesn't always have to be malicious. where we think that proving them wrong proves a point and brings about change. And I do that a lot too, because I think that's my default nature. I love logic. I want to debate people. I enjoy heated discussions, but I'm seeking out to try to learn more in those oftentimes, but it can take a negative twist. When I'm trying to bring correction and I get pulled into debate mode, I move out of that mode of trying to learn and I'm just trying to beat someone else. And that never works. And unfortunately, it typically makes things worse because it forces people into a position where they have to defend where they're at. And now you're in a debate where you're both defending positions and no one's really growing, no one's really learning. And unfortunately, now what we see so prevalent in our culture is that winning a debate isn't enough. To win, we think that we have to get our opposition canceled. And that's what we often call cancel culture now. And cancel culture is becoming all too common. It moves beyond mere correction. It's seeking to cancel the person, cancel the organization, to shut them down, to take away their voice. And really, for the scope of today's conversation, this isn't really correction. It's an attempt to eliminate our opposition, and it's often not rooted in an attempt to a feeling of help, trying to help people, but it's rooted in anger, it's rooted in vengeance. So to be wise, I think we have to move past this type of engagement. Because even more so than that, for those of us that consider ourselves Christians, this approach of cancel culture is contrary to the gospel message. Because the gospel message teaches that we are all broken, we are all fallen, we're all in need of grace. We're all in need of what Jesus has to offer. And when we seek to cancel someone for their mistakes, we're ignoring the fact that we all make mistakes. We're all made in God's image, and we all have inherent value, worth, and dignity. It doesn't take away the fact that we do need to be corrected or that we do need to be held accountable, but our mistakes don't negate the good we've done in the past, and they don't take away our capacity for goodness in the future. So that approach takes away conversation and it ignores the complexity of life and our approach to correction, because real correction, real behavior change isn't that simple. It can't be boiled down to that. And even more than that, again, for followers of Jesus, that's not how we see Jesus operating. He doesn't cancel people. He doesn't take away their voice. He listens. He loves. He reframes perspectives. He meets opposition with nuance. And he engages the complexity of situations and engages the complexity of life. And his ultimate desire was to help. And you may be thinking that you've encountered people that wise words cannot help. I know I've been there. I've thought that I've been in situations that wise words probably couldn't help me that much either. And so when you see those situations, you think, no, wise words can't help them. Those people should be canceled. Lost cause. Jesus didn't think they were a lost cause, but we can learn from wisdom. Because while wisdom doesn't call us to cancel people, it does call us to be discerning on how we offer correction. So our first step before we learn how to offer correction is to learn whether or not we should. So take a look at this proverb in Proverbs chapter 9. It says, "Whoever corrects a scoffer gets himself abuse, and he who reproves a wicked man incurs injury. Do not reprove a scoffer, or he will hate you." And then we have a contrast. "Reprove a wise man, and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man, he will be still wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning." So you see a strong contrast here. And I think the first thing that we need to see is that we don't always have to speak our minds. We see presented here that there are times, there are situations, there are people that attempting to offer correction is not going to be a benefit. It's actually going to be negative for us. So regardless of our words, regardless of what we say, regardless of how wise they are, they're not going to be well received. The people are not going to listen. They're going to fight back. So sometimes it is better to remain silent. I know usually most of the time we don't think we can remain silent, but there are times when we need to remain silent because no good can come to it. But addressing the wise people, we see something very different. We see that wise people enjoy correction. We see that they enjoy growth. We see that proper correction promotes wisdom and promotes learning. So we have to approach these situations with wisdom. We have to be discerning. Our goal is to promote wisdom and to be discerning in that we also have to be wise. And I think in that verse, we see that for ourselves, that we need to check ourselves before we offer correction to others, because if we're bringing forth wisdom, that means that we're willing to receive it too. It means that we're open to correction ourselves. It means that we're open to growth. And if we look at ourselves and we think that we're not quite in that spot, I'm not willing to be corrected, I'm not looking for growth, and I'm not looking to help others grow, then that's a good indicator that we're not in a position that we need to be attempting to correct others. I wish that there was a secret formula that could tell us when to speak or when to be silent, but there's really not. It all depends on approaching these situations with wisdom, being discerning, checking our own motivations, trying to understand the motivations of the other person, trying to determine if we're actually seeking to increase learning, to add value to other people, or are we just trying to blame someone? Are we just trying to make them feel bad? Or are we just trying to win? Our own motivations say a lot about how we should approach a situation. Our goal has to be to add value to other people. And it's easy to lose sight of that in emotionally charged situations. When we're offering correction to people, we may approach with great wisdom. We may be looking with the wisest of words possible. But when we get pulled into the discussion, it's easy to go sideways a little bit. It's easy to let our emotions get the best of us, trying to prove that we're right. And that's where I think it's helpful to consider this idea of correction instead as a challenge. Because I think understanding as a challenge shows that we're pushing against something else. It's leaving the door open to other ideas. And we're not just trying to prove our own idea, but we're trying to push against something else. And I love the way organizational psychologist Adam Grant frames this. He says, we don't have to convince them that we're right. We just need to open their minds to the possibility that they might be wrong. So often whenever we get into these situations, we're just trying to prove we're right. We're just trying to prove our own point. But if genuine correction needs to take place, sometimes it's most helpful if the people get there on their own. And we do that by opening the possibility that these people, they might be wrong. What they're thinking might be incorrect. And I think this is what a good challenge looks like. It leaves room for mutual growth. It leaves room for differing opinions. It leaves room for us to seek out other possibilities together and understand other perspectives. And challenges also move beyond a mere correction, because when you think about a correction, it's really pointing out something that's wrong and pointing out something that should be done instead. But that doesn't always teach well. It doesn't always help people grow. It doesn't always guide them along a good path. But a challenge, when handled well, it invites discussion. It invites understanding. It unpacks differing beliefs and different behaviors. And it paves the way for change. And I believe that that's what we see Jesus doing. He didn't just throw facts at people trying to prove a point. He opened their minds to other possibilities, other ways of viewing the world. He reoriented the way people viewed life and viewed their situations. He didn't just reveal truth to people, but he provided paths for them to get to the truth. And to me, that sounds like a much better way to handle correction, to handle challenges. So I want to spend the rest of our time together looking at how Jesus did that. We're going to look specifically at one narrative where Jesus is challenging a Samaritan woman at a well. We find this in the book of John. Now, John was one of Jesus' closest disciples, and he records this interaction for us. And in this interaction, the woman that Jesus is interacting with has a questionable love life. She's living her life in a way that probably needs a little bit of correction according to Jesus' view. So we can all look at this probably with familiarity, thinking like, how would we approach a friend? How would we approach a family member, someone close to us that's engaging in a behavior that we don't agree with, that we believe needs correction? we're going to see Jesus offer correction for her actions. And I don't think it's going to be in the way that we expect. So it's a long passage. We won't have all of it on the screen, so I encourage you to read the rest of it on your own this week. But we're going to pick up the story in verse 7. In verse 7, John tells us that a woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." And for his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. John tells us this because Jesus' disciples would not have been too happy about Jesus talking to this lady. We'll get more on that in a moment. And the Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria?" And then John tells us, "For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans." So to understand what's going on here and what John's notes are, we need a little bit of background. John gives us a little bit of indicator that there wouldn't have been interaction with the Jews and the Samaritans. But the reason why is that roughly 750 years or so before, the Assyrians had conquered the Israelites. And when they did that, they brought other people from other lands, other conquered people groups in to live there. They repopulated the entire area. And the resulting population, the Samaritans, were mixed ethnicities with the Israelites. And so that resulting group, they modified their religion in different ways. They rejected some of the Jewish teaching. They added non-Jewish teaching. They even modified the Jewish scriptures. So needless to say, the Jews weren't big fans of them. They didn't interact. They didn't even talk to each other. And I think that this sounds really familiar with a lot of disagreements that we hit today, because so much of our modern disagreement, we've drawn tribal lines based on what we see here with religious views, political parties, our racial backgrounds, our ethnicity, geography, where we live, what type of state we live in, where in the country that we have come from, our family history, our views on what we consider moral. Even within the Christian world, we have differing views, and we draw tribal lines based on how we interpret certain scriptures and how we structure our theology in different ways. And these distinctions drive us to not engage one another, to not seek out to better understand how the other people and the other side views things. They drive us, like we see with the Jews and Samaritans, not to interact. But Jesus isn't going to fall for that. He's going to step in and he's going to interact. And we talked a lot earlier about cancel culture. The Jews would have liked to have seen the Samaritans canceled. To them, they were an abomination. To them, they should have been removed from culture. But Jesus is going to step in and do something different. He's going to provide correction, and we're going to see how he does it. It actually starts here, even though it's not directly obvious. The first thing to pick up is that he's directly engaging her. He's engaging in one-on-one conversation, and that's where we see real conversation, real communication, real correction taking place. It's personal. It's one-on-one. It's not on social media. It's not in public discourse. It's not in big groups where people can easily be attacked and ridiculed. It's not in echo chambers. It's one-on-one and it's personal. Because it's not about us making ourselves feel better. It's about adding value to someone else. And if we're going to add value to someone else and have a meaningful conversation, we have to remove hostility. And Jesus did that here by finding common ground. He does that with one statement. He's, "Give me a drink." With this one statement, knowing the background of these people groups, he broke down hundreds of years of hostility. He promoted an engagement where none had previously existed. With the one statement approaching her, he made her think, maybe we're not that completely different. Maybe there's something that exists beyond the differences that I know of. With the one statement, Jesus said to that woman, maybe we don't have to be against one another. So wise words, we see, find common ground, because common ground diffuses tension. It makes communication possible. It shows that we have a shared vested interest together. And it's really hard to be vehemently opposed to someone that you have a shared interest with. It helps humanize both sides. It gives us a thread of unity to hold on to as we engage in discussion. Because to be effective, our goal is to add value to people, So to be truly effective at that, we have to care about helping them, and it has to be genuine. And the more we see glimpses of ourselves in common ground through other people, it makes that easier. It makes us care more. It makes us want to help more. And that caring is what Jesus continues to build on in verse 13. He says to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I will not be thirsty or have to come here for water." So Jesus is continuing to build common ground here. They're working with this concept of water. She wants water, and he's sharing with her this water that he has. And we, as Christians looking back on this, we see that there's so much more he's talking about. But at the most core level, there's something else Jesus is doing here. He's pointing out a void that she has in life, a void that she needs fulfilled. He's pointing out her deepest needs. He's relating to her, and that's demonstrating something else to her. It's establishing empathy with her. And the establishment of empathy is so necessary because it allows us to relate to people. It allows us to show that we care. And that's what Jesus does. He not only sees and respects what she's going through, he enters into it. He cares. He understands. He wants to help. And you can see that comes across as genuine because she wants what he has to offer. She believes him. She trusts him. The establishment of empathy helps build trust with the people we're engaging with. And the way Jesus approached her is what helped build that trust. He didn't approach her with a holier-than-thou attitude. He didn't throw scripture at her. He didn't just point out everything wrong she was doing and try to prove that he was right. He showed that he understood. He showed that he cared. And he's starting to show that he has a better way. He's causing her to think about what her deepest needs are and causing her to rethink how she's fulfilling them. So ultimately, if we're going to challenge people effectively, this is what we have to do. We have to understand the situation that people are in. We have to show that we care about their well-being and establish empathy with them. Only then might they be open to an alternative viewpoint, another way of viewing life. And that brings Jesus up to a point in this conversation where he can actually bring forth a challenge to her. We see that in verse 16. Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband and come here." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying, 'I have no husband.' For you have had 5 husbands, and the one you have now is not your husband. What you have said is true." Now, this may seem a little direct and blunt, but remember, this is a conversation. Jesus has been building this as we go. He's been engaging in active dialogue, likely structuring tone and body language to maximize empathy. So this doesn't just come out of nowhere. But what I really want to look at, he's challenging her actions in life. He's challenging her behavior. He's challenging how she lives. But I really want to focus on her response. Her response says, "Sir, I perceive that you're a prophet." And I've passed over this a lot of times when I've read it because I believe that Jesus is God in the flesh. He is the second person of the Trinity. He is both fully God and fully human. So I know and believe that there are things that he knows that we don't know, things that he's privy to that we are not. And I've always thought about this as indicating those things. But there's more to it than that. The emphasis here isn't how Jesus knows the information he knows. The emphasis is how he's using the information that he knows. He's framed her view here in a way that she agrees with. She's acknowledging it. She's not pushing back. She's not fighting back. This is essential for us when we bring forward challenges with people. Because if we can't describe someone's view in a way that they agree with, we really don't understand it well enough to challenge them. And this is like in a debate world what we would call the difference between a steel man and a straw man argument. A straw man argument is the weakest possible representation of someone's view. And unfortunately, that's how the way we approach things. If we're engaging with someone, we try to frame their view in the worst possible way, the easiest for us to dismantle, the easiest for us to attack. But that's not fair to them or their way of life or the way they view things, and it doesn't bring about change. But if we do a steel man, if we try to understand it as best we can and we present it in the best possible light, in the best possible way, in the strongest possible way, it shows that we understand. And that's what Jesus does here. It's clear he understood her. He understands her situation. And for us, this really comes through dialogue. We have to be curious. We have to ask questions. We have to be good listeners. We can't approach these situations strictly as a challenger. We have to, and as a teacher, we have to approach them as students. Because Jesus is approaching it here, learning how she views the world, so that he can present it in a way that she knows he understands. And that's really the final key to his approach. That's what makes his challenge so effective, is that yes, he is challenging behavior here, but it's not so direct. Because of everything we've seen through the conversation, we've seen that he didn't just come right out and attack the behavior pointed out. He's built up to a point. He's not challenging the behavior directly. He's not even challenging her directly. He's challenging her view of the world. So that's our last bit that we learn here, is that we challenge the view. We don't challenge the person. And the reason why this is so effective is that, remember Adam Grant's quote from earlier. Jesus is opening the door to possibilities that she may be wrong. He didn't attack her. He didn't attack her behavior, but he's pushing against this view of the world. He's pushing against how she's fulfilling her needs. He's making her see that maybe the way I'm fulfilling my needs isn't quite so fulfilling after all. Maybe there's a better way. And this is critical for us because Jesus knows, and we should know too, that behavior is not isolated. Behavior is a symptom of something else. It's a symptom of how we view the world. Our perspectives, our belief systems, our most treasured ideals and values shape our actions and shape our behavior. So to really change our behavior, whatever underlying worldview we have that's driving it, it's got to change first. This is one of the most common mistakes we make when we're trying to bring correction, when we're trying to challenge people. It's that we go directly after the person, or we go directly after the behavior, instead of looking at why they're behaving that way, why they're acting that way, and addressing that instead. Because if we challenge the person directly, we're likely to bring division. We're likely to instigate a debate, a fight. And if we challenge the behavior directly, maybe the same result. And if we're fortunate enough to maybe correct the behavior, maybe bring about some change there, what's going to happen? If the underlying worldview hasn't changed, something else is going to manifest to take its place. Some other false method of fulfillment will creep in. And that's why we as Christians have to recognize the worldviews that shape other people's actions and other people's beliefs. Because we often see things as strictly immoral. We often think that we just need to stop people from doing that. We need to stop our children from acting this way. We need to stop this negative behavior with our friends and our family. We need to stop these actions within our society that we view as immoral. And the desire to stop is good. The desire to stop isn't wrong. But solely focusing on stopping a behavior is rarely effective. We have to make the Christian life and our message about following Jesus and his way of life and his worldview, not about following a bunch of rules. That's why we see Jesus taking a much more holistic approach here. He's addressing the whole person through heart change, not just behavior change. And we see the result in his actions and his challenge in verse 39. Many Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me all that I ever did. So when the Samaritans came to him, they asked him to stay with them. And he stayed there 2 days. And many more believed because of his word. So after Jesus' challenge in this interaction, what did the woman feel like? Did she feel ashamed, provoked, humiliated, put in her place, feel wronged? No, not at all. She left the conversation as a changed woman. And more than that, she left with a changed worldview that had to be shared, that others needed to know. So when we challenge rightly, our change can go beyond the one person we're interacting with. It can have much more far-reaching effects. So for Jesus here and for us, the challenge can't be about just stopping one behavior. It has to be about changing a heart. Because changing the heart will cause behavior to follow. And it can move far beyond just the one individual we're interacting with. So to summarize Jesus' approach, we have to find common ground. We find common ground to diffuse tension, to make dialogue possible, to make it easier to communicate, to remove hostility. And we establish empathy to communicate an awareness of needs, to show genuine concern for meeting those needs, express desire to help people. And then we challenge the view, not the person, because we know that an underlying worldview is really what's driving the behavior. It's what's causing the actions. And we know that attacking the person, attacking the behavior is rarely beneficial. We have to challenge what is driving it. We have to show that there's a better way to view the world, a better way to fulfill what those needs are. Now, this framework isn't perfect, especially when we implement it. Again, we're all broken, we're all fallen, we all make mistakes, we're all in need of grace. And we're not Jesus. We can't implement it the way he does. But it can't be a reason for us not to try, because it matters how we change. The effects are too great, they're too far-reaching not to try to bring about change. And like anything, it can be discouraging that first time we fail, when we misread someone, when we misspeak, when we end up getting pulled into an argument and we fail to really establish empathy. We fail to find common ground. We fail on challenging the worldview appropriately. But like anything else, this takes practice. And again, rooted in wisdom, we know wisdom doesn't develop overnight, so doing this effectively doesn't develop overnight either. But to be truly effective, we have to change our mindset of how we challenge people. We have to remember we're not giving people a piece of our minds. We're trying to bring peace through our words. We're not trying to win arguments. We're trying to change hearts. So ultimately, we're not challenging to win. We're challenging to change. And that's what we have to remember. That's what we have to hold on to. Because how different would things be if that's how we lived? If we challenged to change? If we focused on heart change more than just forcing behaviors to be conformed to whatever ideal we want them to be? What would our families look like if we focused on heart change in the home? Our workplace, instead of putting forth rules and trying to have people conform to behavior, we focused on changing what was driving underlying behavior. What would this church community look like if instead of nitpicking on things that we disagree on, we focused on really understanding why we view things the way we do and trying to develop true change around that? Ultimately, I wonder, what if Christians approached challenges as if Jesus' words were true? That people truly know we are his disciples by the way we love, and the way we love includes how we challenge. We challenge to add value. We challenge to increase love. We challenge to increase learning, and we challenge to increase wisdom. And that statement that we challenge to change is something that we have to hold on to. Because when we get into those situations, it's easy to take the easy way out. It's far easier just to call someone wrong and walk away, just to post something negative on social media and move on. Following the way of Jesus in challenges and correction isn't easy, but it brings about change that we all need. So we have to stop trying to make a point and start trying to make a difference. For Christians, that means how we view the world, how we communicate our worldview to others is really how Jesus views it. How Jesus views life, he views people, how he views challenges is how we have to do it too. But if you're not a Christian, maybe you're like the woman at the well that Jesus was interacting with. Maybe there's something in your life that's a deeper need that needs to be fulfilled, that you're seeing that there's something else out there. You're seeing that what you're using to fulfill it is inadequate. You need something better. And if that's you, I encourage you to give Jesus a chance. He's got a track record for change. And if that's you and you have questions about what it means to follow Jesus, we would love to talk about that with you. In a moment, people from our prayer team will be on my left. You could come speak to them. We have a room to the side. You could go back if you want to have a longer conversation. And if you're online wondering that, please reach out. Please message us. We would love to field any questions that you have. So I hope that you can take away today that when we challenge people, when we all attempt to bring correction, we have to be doing it to add value. We have to be doing it to change a heart. Let's all worship together.
With